Welcome everyone to our ongoing classes on the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, the 7 universal divine commandments for all of mankind, for all the 70 nations of the world as they're known biblically, of course excluding the Jewish people, which have the Torah with the 613. Otherwise, all of mankind have the 7 commandments, and included in the 7 commandments, of course, is belief in God, prayer, and the prohibition against idolatry, that no one is permitted to worship anything or anyone other than God Almighty Himself. That being said, we are currently studying a section in the Tanya, the most fundamental and basic work of Chassidus, of the Chassidic philosophy, written by Rabbi Schneur Zalman of Liadi, the first and the founder of Chabad Lubavitch Chassidus, some 200 years ago. And the name of the book, it is known as the Tanya. We are in the second section of the Tanya, which is known as Shaar HaYichud Veha Emunah, the gate of unity and faith, belief. We are currently in the middle of chapter 11 out of the 12 chapters. We're using the actual original Tanya as it's printed in the regular Hebrew. So we are currently on page Peiches Amud Beis. That would be 88B. Otherwise, on top of the page, it's 176. And we are 4 lines from the bottom of the page. Just to recap, very briefly. We're dealing over here with the absolute true reality of the existence of God. And then we're dealing with our perspective and our perception. On the one hand, there is nothing other than God Almighty Himself. As it states in a number of verses, Ein oid milvadoi, which was the opening verse, actually, of chapter 1. That you shall know and take it to heart that there is none other in the heavens above and the earth below. Ein oid, there's nothing else, no other. Not only is there obviously no other deity, no other gods, there's no existence. The, so to say, problem with that, or the paradox is, well, here we are discussing that. So we do seem to exist. Furthermore, in the Torah itself, in the Bible, right at the beginning, in the written law, Genesis chapter 1, it describes creation. God is the creator. And in the Torah, God is telling us that He creates heavens and earth, etc. He created the world in 6 days and then rested, as it were, on the 7th, Shabbos. So if there's a created entity, if there is a universe, then something does exist. So the Alter Rebbe, the author, as we refer to him as the Alter Rebbe, is explaining how this paradox is to be dealt with. In truth, in essence, there is nothing, there is no existence outside of God Himself. Now, in order to understand that, he uses several examples, several parables. One is the sun. We take this physical entity this massive ball of the sun, and the rays of the sun, the light of the sun. So the light comes out from the sun. The rays of the sun are out of the sun. Inside the sun, there don't exist any rays. And he goes on and he uses that as an analogy. And also he speaks of how it is within ourselves, that we're to understand and analyze how we work, how we have intellect, how we have emotions, and then from that we can extrapolate and understand a little bit of how it is with regards to God, although we cannot compare anything of ours to his. So, he brings down the language used by the sages that God created the world with 10 utterances, 10 expressions, 10 verbal sayings. Let there be, etc. So now, why does God choose to use the term of speech? In Bereshis, in Genesis, it says, Vayomer Elokim, and God said, Yehi, let there be, etc. So, really, as everybody should understand, when we're speaking about the divine, we're speaking about God Almighty himself, the essence of God. There is no such thing as speech. There's no such thing as saying, verbalizing, etc. As a matter of fact, his essence is absolutely indescribable. By definition, not that we lack the language or the understanding to describe it, it is impossible to be described. It is beyond description. It is beyond understanding. Not merely beyond human understanding, it is beyond any intellectual understanding. He's beyond emotions. He's beyond intellect. However, we use these expressions and these terms so that we can relate. For example, what is the function of speech, of human speech? What is the purpose of verbalization? Basically, it is communication. It is to transmit a concept, whether it's an intellectual idea or whether it's an emotional feeling, but to transmit it. So if one human has a feeling, an emotion of love or kindness, in order for the other person, for the benefactor, if you will, to appreciate that and to relate and to feel, so therefore there's the concept of speech, that the giver expresses words of love or words of kindness. The feeling was there before it came into actual words and letters and verbalization. But in order to transmit that and to make that connection in a revealed sense. So basically, words, letters are revealing something which exists in a hidden state to make it revealed. Now, when it comes to God and what's Kabbalistically, according to the mysticism, Jewish mysticism, there are 10 sephiros, 3 levels of intellect, and then basically 7 levels of emotion, character traits. On the one hand, we say that in this very high level of the world of Atzilus, which would be basically translated in English as the world of emanation. It's a godly world. There, the spherois, these 10 spherois, are one and united with God. Problem is, we just said God is beyond any type of description, any type of spherois. How can you label God? How can you say that he's one with the sphere of Chachma? So after going back and forth, basically, I'm oversimplifying it, but basically, it's only from our perspective that he is united with these spherois. Hence, we can then refer to the sphere of Chachma, for example, the first of the 10, wisdom, as being his wisdom. And we clearly state that it is unlike our Chachma, unlike our relationship to our own Chachma within our soul, within our mind. In his case, it's different. And he and his Sephiros do become united and are one, and therefore we can refer to him as Chachma of Atzilus. We just have to realize that when we use the term Chachma, it's not the regular type of Chachma that we're familiar with, even in the spiritual worlds such as Bria, the world of creation, and down. That's on the one hand. That's from our perspective. So that is true from our perspective, us, the so-called observer or the created entity. The higher level of truth, from God's perspective, we can't even say that. It's beyond, he's literally above all. So, let us proceed inside the last part of chapter 11. Again, as mentioned, 4 lines from the bottom of the page, in the middle of the line. So, we said that what we mean when we say God speaks and God says, it's an expression of revealing that which was concealed. Just like a person has something concealed and hidden inside their heart, and they reveal it by speaking. Aval, however, be'emes, in truth, bechinas oisies hadibur shel maila, this idea, this aspect of the letters, the words and the letters of speech, when referring above to the divine, hilamaila maila mimadregeis umahus chachma v'seichel hanivraim, is way above the level and even the essence of chachma, of wisdom, and of intellect of created entities. Sheharei, for behold, b'maimer v'oisiyos, with the expression and with the very letters of the following statement, Nase Adam b'tzalmenu v'goymer, let us make man in our image, etc. A direct quote from Bereshis, from Genesis, day number 6, when God is creating man. Famous words, Naaseh Adam b'tzalmenu. With those very words, with those exact letters, Nivra ha'adam, man was created, Bal chachma v'seichel. And now, man was created as an intellectual being. Or afilu behevel ha'elyin levad. Take it to a deeper level. Let's forget for a moment. Let's leave the words, the letters that God uses in creation. Let's go even deeper than that. What else do we have in creation that the Torah, the actual script, describes? There's something called the divine breath. Not words, not letters. Breath. Kidichsiv, as it is written, the verse states, Vayipach ba'apav nishmas chayim. That he, God, blew into his nostrils, into man, a spirit of life, a soul. So we find in creation, right now we're talking about creation of man, the final creation of this physical universe after everything else was created in the preceding days, beginning with day one. So God is creating man by saying words, just like he said words for everything else to come into existence. And then for the soul of man, for the spirit, beyond words, God is described as blowing into man the spirit. Says the Alter Rebbe, V'im kain, and if so, we're on the top of page Peites, Amud Aleph, 89a. V'im kain, and if so, Hadibur, the speech, V'hevel ha'elyon, and the divine breath, Hu makar ha'chachma v'aseichel, that, in fact, is the source of wisdom and intellect, shebenishmas adam harishain, which is in the soul of the original man, hakoileles, now his soul, the original man, which we learn about in creation, the first man, his soul includes and incorporates kol nishmois hatzadikim, all of the souls of the righteous. Sheheim, that the righteous people, gedolim mimalache hashares, are greater than the angels of heaven. Many people are impressed with angels or supernal beings. And many people think that these spiritual created angels are way beyond, much, much holier, higher and greater than anything that we're familiar with. That is not so. I have news for you. The soul, at least of the Jew, we're talking right now about the Jew, and particularly those that are called tzaddikim, the righteous ones. Those are the ones that don't sin. Those righteous individuals are much greater than the angels, supernal angels. And they were all included, all these souls were included in the original man. According to Jewish mysticism, the original man, which the first human being, made up of 248 and 365 different limbs, organs, sinews, that's the number given. In each part of his physical body, he has life, which is known as the soul. He included in him He had one soul, just like every person has one soul. His one soul was the most general soul. It included within it all the souls of the future to the end of days. Now, when God created him and blew this soul into his nostrils, that is in fact the source for all the souls, and for the highest level within the soul known as Chachma, of wisdom, which is greater even than the angels. V'hainu, meaning to say, let's explain. Lefi she'oisiyos diburo yisparech, for the letters, the words of God's speech, hein bechinas hamshachos koichos v'chayus mimidois of yisparech. They are vehicles. God's words, as it were, are the channels, the vehicles through which godly energy is drawn down. And it's coming from his attributes, from his emotions, so to say. Now these emotions of his are absolutely one and united with his essence, betachlis hayichud, in an absolute union, completely one. Which is way beyond, much, much higher, infinitely higher, says the Alter Rebbe, than the level of Chachma within the created entities. And they're not referred to as letters, legabe hanivroim, relative to the created entity. They're only called letters relative to the emotion. Meaning, we call them, or they are referred to in the Torah as letters, as words. But these words are only referred to such compared to where they're coming from, what they're revealing, what they're an expression of. But not relative to us. So when we speak of God's words, we have to understand that what we mean is the way that he reveals, that he draws down godly energy into creation. And now he explains. V'hinei, hein chof beis minei amshochos chayus v'koiches shoinim zeh mizeh. In the Hebrew alphabet, in the Holy Tongue, there are 22 letters. Now, there's much to be said about these 22 letters, and some of them have, so to say, double letters, meaning if the letter is at the end of a word, so it's a final letter. But it's in essence the same letter. So we're not going to get into that. So we're going to speak about 22. That's the number. When it comes to letters of God's language. And again, just to reiterate something that we said many classes ago, when we were somewhere in the beginning, chapter 1 or so, one of the first classes. There's only one language. There's only one real language, one original language. That is the Holy Tongue, L'Shon HaKodesh. Today it's referred to as Hebrew. And I don't mean modern day Hebrew, but the L'Shon HaKodesh, the Holy Tongue, which the Torah is originally in, that is the language with which God created the world. All languages that follow afterwards are man-made. We learn the story of the Tower of Babylon, how God mixed up all their languages. However it developed, but originally there was just one language. This one language, with the 22 letters, every one of those letters is a different and a distinct form of drawing down godliness. There are 22 pipes, so to say. Now, you have to combine the letters in order to make words so that it can make sense. And you put the letters in a certain combination in order for it to be a certain word and to mean a certain thing. So all that he spoke about earlier. Now, each one of these letters individually represents a certain type of flow of godly energy to this world. And, as he's going to say, the actual form of the letter, what it looks like. And without getting into all of the deep history, let's just keep it simple and let's speak about the letters as they appear today on the Torah scroll. You open up a Sefer Torah, the scroll, the holiest item, holiest object that we today have, which is kept in a sacred holy ark in every shul, every synagogue. Every Torah scroll is identical, handwritten by a professional scribe, letter per letter, with the proper exact spacing, many, many, many details, how to write a kosher Sefer Torah. It's not a piece of art. It's not calligraphy. The person has to know much Jewish law and has to be trained in writing very particularly, very specific, using a particular type of a quill, particular ink on parchment, and so forth. And writing the Torah letter for letter. There are over 300,000 letters in every Torah scroll. Now, the letters have form. The written letter, each letter looks different from the other. 22 different letters. Now, these 22 letters are 22 different types of drawing down godly energy. Shebohen, that with these 22 letters, Nivru kol ha'olam ha'elyonim v'sachtonim, all worlds, the upper worlds, the most spiritual worlds, and the lowest of the low, our universe, everything was created through these 22 letters. V'chol ha'bruim shebesoicham, and all of existence, all creation, which is within these worlds, everything is created through these 22 letters. Shekach Allah b'ritzoyne v'chachmasa yisbarech livroi ha'olam b'chaf beis mine amshachis shoyne istavka loy pachis v'lo yoser. For so willed it, his divine will, that it should be these 22 letters, no more, no less. So the Alter Rebbe really is not leaving much room for a person to try to understand and analyze why 22, why these letters? Why not 23 letters? Why not 21 letters? He's saying this is God's will. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to talk about. You can inquire, you can try to search, analyze. This is God's will for whatever reason, so to say. So he chose that it should specifically be to create the world with these 22 separate and different types of drawing down. Ve'hein hein And they are, in fact, the 22 letters which are established in the mouth and in the tongue. Kidisnan b'Sefer Yetzirah, as it is taught in Sefer Yetzirah, the book of Yetzirah. Sefer Yetzirah is the most ancient book that we have. It is the basis of all of Kabbalah, of mysticism. The secrets of the Torah are there, and it's one book, and we have it. It's printed. It's published. The author is Avraham Avinu, Abraham. He's the author of the book. And in Sefer Yetzirah, it describes creation. In Sefer Yetzirah, it talks about the 22 letters and the form of the letters, and that God creates the world with these letters. Utmunasan bichsav, and their form, in the written form of the letter, what they look like when you write the letter, hi moir al tzir hamshacha, that is actually representing the spiritual form, of the drawing down of the godly energy, as we are going to discuss further. Meaning, for those of you that are familiar with at least somewhat familiar with the Hebrew aleph base, every letter begins with the 10th letter, the Yud. The form of each letter contains within it the Yud. Yud is the smallest letter. It basically has very little dimensions. Take the 6th letter, the Vav. The Vav is basically a Yud, but the line extends itself all the way down. That represents drawing down, straight down. And every other letter, with whatever shape it takes on, is representing in a physical form. It's showing us, for those that can understand it, what is going on spiritually when that letter is pronounced. So every letter has a different sound. There's 22 different sounds. And in the combination of these letters to form words and then to form a statement and a sentence, that is drawing down godliness in a very particular way. And that is alluded to and hinted to in the physical design and shape and form of the letter. Shagam oisyes hadibur v'amachshava shebenefesh adam. So now getting back to man, also the letters of speech and thought, which are in the soul of man, heinam shachos me'aseichel v'amides shebenefesh. They are in fact similar to the way it is with creation, with God. The letters of speech and thought within the soul of man, they are drawing down from man's intellect and from man's emotions. Shebenefesh. Mimahusan v'atzmusan. From the very essence. As written in a different place. Meaning, we're using the analogy of human expression, human intellect, human emotions, and then human speech. And by doing so, we can, to some degree, understand and relate to the Creator. So what many people may not have been aware of or realize words, letters, expressions of a human being are very deep. And they are coming from their essence of their soul. And they are a revelation, a drawing down of his intellect and of his emotions. Now, mind you, that even if one is not speaking in the holy tongue, whatever language you speak, the sounds are all the same. It's just a matter of combination. Aside for the small accents, but otherwise, every language basically has the same sounds. Just different names for the letters and different forms for the letters as they've developed over the years. But take, for example, the Hebrew letter of Beis. That makes the sound of B, which in English would be the B. Take the letter Pei, which would make the sound of a P. Take the letter Hey, the sound of an H. Take the letter Kuf, the sound of a K. Take the letter Resh, the sound of an R, and so on. So whatever language you speak, you are actually making the sounds of the original 22 letters. The combination is different. So your speech, your letters, which first we have letters of thought, and then we have letters of speech. So that is a verbalization of your inner self, namely your intellect and your emotions. Similarly, when it comes to God creating, he's drawing down from his essence, which became, in our terms, united with his intellect and his emotions. And by saying these words, that means that it's drawing down this energy. Now, words are very powerful. Words are a very powerful tool. On the one hand, words are meaningless. Words are nothing. How do the little children in preschool say? Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me? Something like that. Someone says something, big deal. It's not an action. Empty. Words. They're just a bunch of sounds. Which is true on the one hand. As it says in Sefer Yetzirah, that letters are compared to stones. They're lifeless. They seem to be meaningless. With stones, you build houses, and you ultimately build cities, and you build. A whole world is built with these stones, these lifeless stones. So words themselves, in and of themselves, are really nothing. Nothing more than a vehicle, than a conduit, than a funnel through which the innermost and the essence is expressed. The Alter Rebbe explains in the earlier section, the first part of the Tanya, and elsewhere, regard the soul of man and the garments. What are the garments? The way he expresses himself. Just like a human being, physically, they have themselves, their body, but then they express themselves with their clothing. And the way a person dresses gives off a certain message, says certain things about the person. A person can, of course, disguise himself. How does a person who is the prince or a very high-ranking officer, a great minister, but he wants to appear to be some pauper or some poor person or a drunkard in the gutters? Basically, all he has to do is put on certain types of clothes, and he's disguised himself, or vice versa. You could take somebody who's in society a nobody, and if you dress him up properly, all of a sudden, everybody respects him. They assume this guy is some great philanthropist or something. This guy's a very, very wealthy person. The guy has no penny to his name. He's just disguised. So our clothes are expressions. Generally, hopefully, we're not disguising ourselves. We're wearing what is appropriate, and it's expressing who we are. So spiritually speaking, we have three garments: thought, speech, and action. That's not who we are. The way you behave is not you. The way you speak is not you. The way you think is not you. Well then, what's you? Who are you? So you are your intellect and your emotions. Seichel, intelligence, and midos, character traits. But to express that, you have words, let's say, letters, which is thought and speech. We're focusing mainly on the speech. Then the Alter Rebbe, elsewhere, explains that in truth, in essence, it's way beyond seichel, intellect, and midos, the emotions. That's also not really truly the essence. The essence is the essence, beyond description, as we said. However, the essence becomes one and united with these 10 spheros, with the intellect and the emotions. And then that becomes revealed, and that functions, so to say, through speech. So to try to sum up where we're at this point, now that we've concluded chapter 11, if we can break it down as follows. There's the very essence of God. Beyond anything, beyond description, beyond conversation, and there's nothing to talk about. And if we were to give a class on the essence of God, the class would last for about 1 second or less. Nothing to say. Essence. Then he wills it that he becomes, from our perspective, totally united with seichel and midos, intellect and emotions. But now he wants to reveal his essence, which now became enclosed in intellect and emotions. He wants to reveal. He wants to create from that, with that. So in essence, creation then is really one with his essence. And for that, he uses words and letters, the 22 holy letters. Just as we speak, and by doing so, we're revealing that which is deep inside, a deep concept, a deep feeling. We speak, we communicate, we reveal, we make that connection. Similarly, God speaks these 22 letters, and by doing so, he is creating, he's drawing down this godly light, this godly energy, this godly vitality, which is coming from his emotions, his intellect, which is one with his essence. And that pretty much brings us to the final chapter, chapter 12 of Shaar HaYichud Veha Emunah. If you're having difficulty understanding or properly really internalizing these concepts, I would say no worries. And just to remind you of what the Alter Rebbe said previously, such as in chapter 9, that we really can't understand these concepts. And it is beyond understanding. And we need to, it's not, God forbid, a cop-out, but what we need to do is, so to say, fall back or rely on that which is beyond intellect. And that's faith. That's belief. Many people have the wrong approach. They say, oh, blind faith, that's for fools. That's beneath intelligence and understanding and logic. No. Logic, rational understanding, that's limited. Faith, pure faith, is beyond limitation. So where understanding, where logic, where rational explanation ends, that's when you then resort to faith. So why even bother with intelligence, with trying to intellectually understand this? The Alter Rebbe is spending 12 chapters explaining this paradox. What for? Why don't we just make one statement? And if you don't understand it, and if it's a paradox, so be it, but just have complete and pure belief in God. Because God wants us to use this tool that he created and he gave us called intelligence, and he wants us to use it to the best of our ability and to come to know him also through our mind, through the rational mind. So it really is insufficient to believe and to serve God on a level of faith and belief. That may be the most important, that may be the most basic, but it is not enough. One is to use their mind and to logically prove to themselves, as well as to others, the existence of God and what that means and what that negates. And rationally, so to say scientifically, we can absolutely prove the existence of the Creator. But we have to realize, as brilliant as one may be, as many volumes as there may be in proving Creator, creation, God, that's all limited. Whatever we understand is a limitation, and it goes beyond. And that's where we use faith. So until next time, I'd like to wish everyone much success in studying, in promoting, and most important, in observing and spreading the observance of the 7 Noahide commandments, to make this world, in a revealed way, the perfect world that it's meant to be from creation, with the advent of Mashiach, which is where we're at right now, and may we merit immediately the complete and total revelation of Mashiach now. Thank you.